Yeah, in case you missed it, on Monday night, USC was playing Mississippi State. Early in that game, JuJu Watkins, USC's star, one of the biggest stars in the sport. I would say one of the biggest stars in sports, period, right now. JuJu Watkins had the ball, was driving. She was kind of sandwiched between two defenders, landed awkwardly on that right leg. She fell to the ground, instantly was grabbing that knee, was writhing in pain. It was truly difficult to watch, like the kind of injury that you see and it just sends shivers down your spine, and you instantly think like, please, please, please don't let it be what it looks like. But late Monday night, early Tuesday morning, we did get a confirmation from Sham Strania of ESPN. It was a torn ACL for JuJu. So that obviously affects this tournament. It doesn't just affect USC, frankly, Ice, in my opinion. This affects the entire tournament. This affects the way that I look at that side of the bracket. This affects the way that I look at, okay, what does the Elite Eight shape up to look like? Because I know when Selection Sunday came around, when we looked at that bracket, we were all circling the Elite Eight in Spokane on that side of the bracket to say we would love a JuJu Watkins Paige Bueckers rematch. We want a
Right.
USC UConn rematch. Now all of a sudden, UConn's path to the Final Four feels a little bit different. That entire side of the bracket feels a little bit different. USC will play Kansas State in the Sweet 16. Now, all of a sudden, is a JuJu Watkins-less USC team much more vulnerable against Kansas State. So it doesn't just change the way that I view USC's trajectory. Still very much so a talented and deep team that can make a run, but to Fitz's point, just feels a little bit different now. And I would say the odds feel a little bit different. But I look at the entire tournament differently without JuJu Watkins.
You have to. I mean, how can you not? This is one of the best scorers in the game right now. USC literally has been a top 5, definitely top 10 team all season. When they beat the number 1 seed in UCLA, it was because JuJu dropped 30 or JuJu dropped 28. I tell you what, though, seeing JuJu go down in the first 5 minutes of the game, I think it was 4 minutes and 40 seconds left in the first quarter, and still having USC pull out a win versus number 9 Mississippi State 96-59. I mean, they looked, like they made a seamless transition without her, which is the resilience that you want to see in March. I think for USC, you've got to lean on the experience that you do have. Talia Van Alhoffen is a point guard that has experience and that's played in the tournament. You lean on Kiki Iriafen. That's an experienced player who dropped 30 plus points in that game once JuJu got out the game. I just feel like for them, it's a tall task without JuJu because we haven't seen this team without her all season. But doesn't it make for such an interesting Cinderella kind of story if they do happen to win 2 games? And I definitely think their game versus Kansas State, they can compete without JuJu on the floor.
Yeah, it's tougher when you get to the best of the best. And this is not a statement about USC. It's a statement about the rest of the top 5, 6 programs in the country, right? Like we can't sit here all year and tell you guys that, there are multiple teams that could genuinely win a championship that are equally dominant across the women's college basketball landscape right now, and then not, give it its proper weight in those matchups, because it's not about USC versus anybody in my mind other than those teams we've spent all year talking about. So the question now becomes, can USC beat Connecticut without JuJu? Like, those are the moments that, and it's kind of heartbreaking because, Caroline, you mentioned the Connecticut matchup that we were all sort of salivating for. And the first thing I think about is Paige knows better than anybody what it's like to have to go through this, right? And it's just such a opportunity lost for the player. And I don't know what the NBA, I was trying to think this morning of what the NBA equivalent of this is, but because you're not just talking about a player, you're talking about a brand. I mean, to the point, Caroline, that you made earlier, we've all been watching these games and these commercials, and you see JuJu as much as you see anybody. She's a brand. She's one of the people you think about, when everybody goes to Tampa for the Final Four, the faces they're going to put on the banners of the teams in the Final Four to pique interest. JuJu's one of them. So it's it hurts from the basketball standpoint. It hurts from the marketing standpoint. It hurts this team when they're taking on the best of the best. I hope that they galvanize together and this becomes the coolest story in the world, that they can manage to still win a championship without JuJu. But that just feels like such a huge ask now.
You bring up a fair point in a comparison with Paige Bueckers. Paige Bueckers tore her ACL in 2022 when it felt like she was in a very similar position as JuJu. Now, the game has grown in just the 3 years since Paige Bueckers tore her ACL. So JuJu may be on a little bit of a larger stage, just given the growth of the sport. But still, Paige Bueckers was a household name. If you didn't know anything about women's college basketball, you knew Paige Bueckers. She was the star. She was the face of the sport. She tears her ACL. Now, all of a sudden, her career trajectory and her career timeline is completely kind of probably her perception of how her career was going to go is completely turned over. But now you see where Paige Bueckers is. She still is one of the stars of the sport. She is more than likely going to be the #1 overall pick in the WNBA draft, and she is on a path, a legitimate path to winning a national championship at UConn. So if I'm JuJu Watkins, and I know right now the very last thing she wants is a silver lining or to look at the glass half full, because right now she's probably just pissed off and sad. And look, it's okay to be pissed off and sad when something like that happens to you, like what happened to JuJu Watkins on Monday night. But if I am going to find a silver lining for her, I'd like to do that. I'm a glass half full person. I look at Paige Bueckers and what she's been able to do, how she's been able to come back from an ACL tear, how she is now one of the most effective and efficient women's college basketball players in the history of the sport. Now I kind of look at JuJu Watkins and I look at next year. Fitz, you bring up next year. I usually look at an ACL tear as about a 12-month recovery, give or take a couple of months. So we're talking about the tournament next year. Is JuJu Watkins going to leave USC to go to the WNBA draft after only being able to play maybe in a handful of games in the tournament, if that? All of that is kind of to be determined over her recovery and what the next 12 months look like. But now we're talking about the WNBA draft. Now we're talking about women's college basketball over the next couple of years. Do we get a couple more years of JuJu Watkins? Frankly, selfishly, I hope so. I hate that it happens under these circumstances, but this is kind of a domino effect that we'll see not just over the next couple of weeks in the tournament, but over the next couple of years as JuJu Watkins goes through recovery.
Every great player has been through adversity. Every great player has had to go through something in order to show that they are actually a great player. And so I think that's why we have so much respect for Paige Bueckers. There are tons of players at the next level in the W have sustained an ACL or an Achilles injury and come back from it. I think for JuJu, you just hope that she has a safe and speedy recovery, but you also just selfishly can't wait for the comeback.
100%. She's kind of got the Kobe Bryant Mamba mentality. And you heard it the night 2 nights before when she was kind of banged up with the ankle and the wrist. She was like, nobody cares, okay? Nobody cares about my injuries. Let's go back out there and I'm going to go and do everything that I need to do. She very much so has such a competitor mentality. So this is, for lack of better terms, minor setback for a major, major comeback, or at least what we all can believe will be a major comeback for JuJu Watkins. So we've got full breakdowns on the injury, what that means for USC. You can find that at sports.yahoo.com. Bummer for USC, but still going to be a blast of the rest of the tournament.